In the fourth class, you must have noticed that we talked about other attributes of the activities for the production of the schedule, which is the device, the tool, that allows you to control and plan first the activities that will be executed for the production of the project scope. And we said that following the principle of the critical path methodology, which provides for scheduling as soon as possible, it is also feasible or interesting to put some activities as late as possible in our planning. However, we have sad news when you do this with the MS Project tool. Let's try to understand where this problem is, as late as possible. Late possible. Here you see planning that contains 9 activities, 3 of which are in one branch and 6 are in the other branch, and the second branch has the sequencing that colored the activities in red, and colored in red because we adjusted the tool for that, because when we find 0 total backlash, total clearance has meaning. A 0 total slack shows that no activity in this branch can be rescheduled, or, in the future in execution, can be delayed without impacting the end of the project. It defines the longest path of all branches and also defines the fastest way to do this. All activities are of the earliest possible type. This objective is to deliver the results as quickly as possible, but the branch that is in blue is the production branch that has a total slack different from 0. That is, activity 1 can be rescheduled, postponed, delayed and even delayed without compromising the final result, the final date of the project. 2 can also delay or reschedule because it takes 3 with it, and 3 is far from finishing the project. That is, activities 1, 2 and 3 have total slack different from 0. They do not represent a serious problem for the delivery date. It can represent other problems, but for the delivery date they do not represent. And we verified that in this tool all activities are as early as possible. And we have free days off. Here the free slap. The first activity has a free break, the second does not, the third does. The first one has free slack and I want to understand what free slack is. I asked Google for help and it gave me what is the difference between free float and total float. Let's read. I validate this information as an expert. Total slack is the amount of time an activity can be rescheduled or postponed or eventually delayed without changing the impacted project finish date. So this explanation is simple, but I validate this explanation. Free slack is the amount of time an activity can be delayed, rescheduled, or postponed, without dragging, disrupting successor activities. So when I look here, I can defer, delay, reschedule 416 hours without impacting the successor activity. Activities on the critical path, which have no total slack, also have no free slack. They are practically sequenced without breathing. So I'm going to show that this planning can be done in another tool. This tool is Primavera Risk, which is Primavera and which has a calculation mechanism. And all are as early as possible. We combine it like this. The CPM seeks this brevity, and we see here that slack. Here on the right side, free slack and total slack. And we checked the critical path with 0 total float, 0 free float, and we checked here. We checked here in days the free float that we had in the MS Project tool, object of our study. Let's see one more tool. This tool here is MS. It's Spider Project. It's not MS Project, it's Spider Project. And he also has the earliest possible. And he also has the free slack field. These two have, like ours, and we have the total slack and we have nothing on the critical path, free or total. Note that it is the old default color, red and blue. This also applies to Spring, red and blue. I kept the default colors the same as MS Project, red and blue. Now see what happens when I ask activity 1 to be done as late as possible. Why do I want to do as late as possible? Because I don't want the group in this branch to stop for 416 hours, and then continue. I want it to work evenly, regularly, without downtime, all the time. So for that, I'm not going to perform as soon as possible. I will choose as late as possible. And as late as possible, the activity will, without disturbing anyone, come here for the very beginning of the activity. I'll do it first in the Spider Project tool. Here's the lappy I'm going to ask you to calculate. The tool needs to be calculated. And she's out of the beginning, has no anxiety, and will produce on the blue branch, still keeping full slack. Burning free slack here. I'm going to do the same thing in the Primavera software. I will say here is as late as possible. I need to calculate too. The calculation happens, and after I plan the activity, it burns all its free slack and settles on the production line because the others continue on their schedule as soon as possible. Now I'm going to do this in the MS Project tool. I'll post it as late as possible. Notes that she burned all of her total slack. She rescheduled 2 and 3 and took them all to the end of the project. This is not what I wanted. I wanted her to obey the CPM rule. When you put it as late as possible, it burns the free slack and settles down before its closest successor. And here she settled down, but I also pay everyone forward. What does that mean? How could you resolve this flaw in the MS Project algorithm? The solution found so far is a technical solution, but unstable. You can find that the successor activity, the first successor activity of activity 1 is activity 2. You copy the beginning of activity 2 and paste it as the end in a special way, as if it were dynamic link of activity 1. In this way, they continue with the slack. In this case, the free slack of activity 1 disappears and respects all works of activities in that branch. If by chance something is rescheduled here, or it takes the independent network forward in activity 1 by virtue of the dynamic link as well, I'll once again make a change and the dynamic link takes the activity. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. I'll have the normal situation with no dynamic link. This type of adjustment due to a failure of the program's algorithm for scheduling activities for project management is not necessary, for example, neither in Primavera, nor in Spider Project, nor in Astra Power Project, nor in Saffron, nor in other management tools.